The habit of pausing when agitated, to avoid reacting to situations the way you always have, and instead indulging a moment to first reflect. In other words, maybe don't immediately respond to the upsetting email until tomorrow. Walk away from the computer. You know that's what you're supposed to do. Sleep on it. Talk it through with that trusted friend. It also means, another trope, how you do anything is how you do everything. How you make coffee, how you interact with the grocery clerk, how you take feedback from your boss, how you respond when someone cuts you off in traffic, or what you choose to notice or pay attention to while walking down the street. It means slowing down. And this is why consistent meditation and mindfulness practices are essential non-negotiables.
Need motivation?
Watch a Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because I need it. I need it for me because I don't wake up every day and say, yes, let's go conquer the world. No, I wake up and I need that external motivation to match my internal motivation. When I see somebody who's doing amazing things, it makes me just want to play a bigger game. And so I hope that today's video makes you want to play a bigger game too, because your message matters, and let's get it out to the world. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Rich Roll, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2 is learn to prioritize.
So work-life balance in and of itself is a pretty ridiculous concept. To think that there is a balance, there really must be, as you kind of describe it, a subjective balance where there's a balance for Steve. And as long as I don't sacrifice social connection, isolation, and all the other things, then I'm balanced. My balance could, look much different from yours.
For whom and when, right? If you're 22 years old and you've got this idea for a startup and you're a coder and you want to code like a maniac, like knock yourself out. You have no other responsibilities. You have the time, you have the freedom to do that in that moment. But that 22-year-old, 20 years later with kids and a mortgage and whatever, it's a different time. That person's in a different place. These things, can't be, they have to be contextualized, right? And yes, if you want to achieve something great, you are going to have to work very hard and you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You may even need to be obsessed. If you're living an entirely balanced life where you're home at 5 o'clock and you're always at dinner and all, it's like you're making it very difficult to achieve something extraordinary. That extraordinary thing is going to require an extraordinary commitment, which means in the social construct of balance, you are going to be out of balance. If you're going to feel uncomfortable with that because you have other priorities in your life, then maybe that's not for you. And being out of balance to pursue something great, in my opinion, is perfectly fine. Again, as long as you allow that pendulum to swing back and those other things in your life that are important are nourished and attended to. So it's a very specific thing. It depends on who you are, what stage of life you're in, what you're seeking, and having the self-awareness to understand that you can't be everywhere all the time. And you can't be 100% for all of the things that are important to you in your life in every single day. So it's about conscious awareness and intentionality about where you're rowing that boat. You can only row your boat in one direction. Are you rowing the Stephen boat towards Stephen today? Are you going to row it towards your girlfriend? Well, you're going to have to do a lot of rowing in a lot of different directions. It's just knowing that you're making a conscious choice and doing that with that understanding and appreciation, I think is really important. But all of this is to put the lie to the idea that anybody is living a balanced life on a minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour, day-to-day basis. It's a construct that I think makes people feel guilty and bad about themselves because none of us are adhering to that idealized version of a balanced life that we have a mental picture of.
Rule number 3 is take small steps.
Once you've acknowledged a desire to change, how do you enact these mindset changes in your life?
This is a subject matter that you're kind of tiptoeing around that I was trying to get at in that recent monologue episode.
Yes.
The yin and yang of change. On the one hand, there is this mindfulness, presence, Eastern piece, which is when you're paying attention, you can notice the recurrences of your thoughts and you can catch yourself before you react mindlessly, and you can decide to behave differently, and you can remember like, oh, here I am doing that negative thing. I'm not going to do that anymore. Okay, here's my opportunity to do the positive thing. And that only happens when you slow things down and you develop that muscle of mindfulness and paying attention and being present. The other side of it is the action piece. So the mindfulness piece is like, it can be like a lightning bolt. Like you could change your mind and your life is different all at once.
Yeah.
It can happen in an instance. So there's the lightning bolts, and then there's the bricklaying part, the action part, the atomic little pieces, the James Clear kind of habit forming behavior that leads to incremental change over time. And I think both of those things are important. Mood follows action. Action first creates
Mood follows
the
action.
mindset changes and the emotional changes. So all of these things emanate from action. So when you say, I want to change my mindset, first of all, great. Let's recognize and applaud you for, having that, desire. But I think everybody kind of wants to be better, has a desire for their life to be a little bit better than it is. So let's not make too much of that. The real rubber meets the road when we start talking about how you translate that desire into something, anything, behavior, right? It's all about execution and action. So when you say, I'm looking for a mindset change, what does that mean? That's such a vague thing. I want to be more positive. Still super vague. You have to be very specific. You can't just suddenly start thinking differently, because mindset is, like I said, both a reflection and a product of behavior. And it's less about what you're thinking, and it's more about what are you doing on the bricklayer side of things. Like act first, the mind will follow, mood follows action. And that is effective when you have clarity, specificity, and structure around what that looks like. And so you need to translate that desire to change into, first, like, what does it look like? And what are the doable, repeatable, sustainable actions that you can take every single day, like James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits? And how do you protect them and prioritize them so that they're repeatable and sustainable within the construct of your busy life? If it becomes disruptive to your life, you're setting yourself up for failure. The people who are successful, are the people who are able to make those tiny, invisible, atomic tweaks, repeat them enough until they become rote, and then build upon them. So their lifestyle shifts gradually in, kind of proportion to the changes that are being made. And you kind of expand in this organic, gradual way.
Rule number 4 is connect with yourself.
Allow yourself to be more open and more vulnerable with a circle of trusted friends, because what is hidden cannot be healed. It is in the light and the sharing and the trust and the vulnerability that together we get better. And because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, it's my belief that engaging with a spirituality of your choosing through prayer, ceremony, or other means that you discover or become comfortable with is really paramount. Journaling, another obvious but important big one, challenging to do with consistency, but so crucial in terms of connecting with and being in relationship with and indulging your creativity and taking it out of the journal into the world to give yourself permission to be creative, to express yourself, to build something, to make something, to share something is a great practice.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5 is fix your diet.
Focus on your diet first. I think changing your plate and cleaning up the vibration of what you're putting into your body is a portal to the soul. And if you are intentional about that and really focus on trying to eat real foods as close to their natural state. In my case, I eat a 100% plant-based diet. If you're not ready to take that entire leap, just try to eat mostly fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, and beans, things like that. I think that will be a catalyst for future growth in those other areas. And that was my experience. I wasn't ready to meditate or to return to becoming an athlete or any of those things. I started with changing my relationship with food. And I think when you change that frequency of what you're putting into your body, it impacts you on every level, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, etc. And it is a catalyst for progressive growth from there. So I would start with that, and the more you kind of refine that, then suddenly you get interested because you suddenly have a heightened sense of vitality. You're like, oh, I feel like going out and moving my body. I haven't felt like that way. And so the fitness will naturally follow. And then you're like, wow, my body feels good and I'm taking care of it in this way. Like, how do I tend to my spirit and my emotions and my mind? Well, I guess I'll start exploring the world of meditation.
Rule number 6 is know your mission.
Who are you and what mission are you on?
Coming out of the gate hot. That's a very difficult question to answer. I would say that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, attempting to learn and grow in a number of ways. I had an experience in my early to mid 40s where I was able to tap into potential that I didn't know existed, and I expressed that athletically. And that experience taught me that we're all capable of so much more than we allow ourselves to believe. And it motivated me to go on this journey to grow and expand in other areas of my life, because I realized if I had been sitting on this latent potential athletically for so long, there must be other blind spots, and I wanted to explore those. And so my mission has been to grow in the public sphere, learn in the public sphere by having these conversations on my show, and then share that wisdom with other people for the purpose of elevating consciousness and activating positive change in others. I want everybody listening or tuning into the show to believe to their core that they are capable of more than they may realize, that there is a greater possibility for every single person, regardless of circumstances. And there are tools available for accessing that. I think that's super important, because I think it's so easy to passively or reactively live our lives. We're all on some level in a routine, in a rut, and we have blinders on because we're in a certain social environment where there's unstated dictates about what's okay and what's not. And we're all creatures who want to feel a sense of belonging and identity with whatever group that we're aligned with. And I think that comes with very good things of feeling wanted and needed, but also negative aspects which create blinders to the greater possibilities that are available to us.
Rule number 7 is practice gratitude.
Another great practice, practicing random acts of kindness, practicing them until they become reflexive, cultivating gratitude by making a handwritten list each day of things you are thankful for. Seek out awe, seek out wonder by both investing in unique experiences, but also by just identifying it in your everyday lives. When you're present and you're noticing, you can find awe and wonder in everything. Practice becoming an excellent listener, not just to yourself, but to others, because the greatest gift that you can give another is your attention. It's a gift that will be rewarded tenfold. Pursue joy. And finally, find a way to be of service to others, preferably that also channels that connection with joy, because we all have something of value to give, and acting on it unlocks the door to purpose.
Rule number 8 is embrace change.
Change is possible. Transformation is within your grasp, always. And for so many reasons, I've come to believe that it's your birthright to grow. We were born to evolve. It's something that's imprinted on our DNA. It is our mandate. But there is a caveat, and it's a powerful one at that. And it's captured in this saying that's often repeated within 12-step communities, and it goes like this: change isn't for those who need it, it's for those who want it. Translation, it's all about willingness. Willingness born out of a desire to survive, I suppose, but also pain. This pain that was so severe, it eclipsed the very real fear that I held about change, any kind of change, about letting go, about surrendering, about asking for help, and being open to actually receiving help. I think that pain saved me, but the point I want to make is that you don't have to be in pain to change. You don't have to hit rock bottom in order to make alterations to your life. Pain makes it easier, of course, but the truth is that change is always within your grasp if you can summon the willingness to ask for it. And again, and most importantly, receive it when given.
Rule number 9 is engage in what brings you joy.
I realize I'm in the wrong place, but I'm 39 years old and I've got kids, I've got a house. We live in this part of London so I can get to work quickly. We've built our lives around this, person I thought I wanted to be. And I'm held in place by my friendship group and my mum lives down. People have that fear. They think, how do I break out of that? How do I shed?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first I would say to that person, congratulations. Like, you created a life for yourself. Like, on some level, even if you want to leave that career path or you're unfulfilled in that, you still are somebody who is deserving of acknowledgement for building something. And, that's an amazing thing. So it's not about casting that aside or disrespecting it. For me, I would say to that person, what is it that gets you excited? Like, what is it that you feel is unnourished in your life? Do you have a creative itch? Is there something calling you, or something, again, that you used to do as a kid that you really enjoyed, and for some reason, unbeknownst to you, you don't do it anymore? Maybe it's
music.
Like, yeah, it could be music or stand up, or you play football, right? Like being on a football team or doing something, just having coffee with your friend or what have you. Finding a way to build that back into your life in a way that isn't going to derail your current life. But I think just breathing on that, like giving space to the things that bring you joy in the most primal sense, like the simplest things that just you remember made you happy, that you've forgotten, and recapturing that and finding a way to respect that, protect it, nourish it, and inject it into your life. And I think the more that you kind of tend to that garden, suddenly, a little opportunity over here pops up, or something is telling me I should move this way. These are very subtle energies that you have to be present for in order to notice them when they appear. But I think those are the subtle energies. Those are the waves you want to be surfing. And you can do that while you're working at the bank. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. And over time, maybe you start moving a little over this way. 5 years later, your life is unrecognizable. And I think this goes to the impatience that we all have. We all want to be this idealized version of ourselves, happier, fitter, thinner, richer, whatever it is, overnight. And we overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, or maybe in a couple years, and completely underestimate what we could do in a decade. We're not wired to think in decades. It seems too intangible. But if all you do is make tiny little changes to build in habits into your life that bring you joy or fulfillment or happiness or purpose in incremental micro allotments that don't disrupt the rest of your life, You do that for 10 years straight, your life is going to be different. And I can promise you that.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is make room for boredom.
My first recommendation, not shockingly, is to log off, step away from the device, go outside, create rules around the use of your technology that provide ample time and space to seek inward. In other words, make room for boredom. I'd also like you to consider sobriety, or at least minimizing alcohol and other mind-altering substances for the purpose of cultivating clarity. Because to numb oneself out is to arrest growth in its tracks. Prioritize quiet, prioritize rest, prioritize sleep, and, important one, prioritize meditation. Key. And then take your mindfulness and your mindfulness practice off the mat and into the experience of your daily life. I encourage you to consciously strive to be present, even for the most banal of moments, and really connect more deeply to your body. What is it telling you? Listen to the signals that it's giving you. Pay attention, particularly to the faint whispers, especially when they recur. What are they saying? I tend to hear them best with a slightly elevated heart rate while alone in nature, and consider them messengers, sacred foot soldiers dispatched from my future higher self. They are catalysts for transformation, delivering magic when translated into action. So listen to them and act upon them. I came into this understanding through recovery from alcoholism. And I'm somebody who grew up in a very rationalist household with, academically minded parents. And I was blessed with the best education that anybody could buy, and studied science and the humanities and all of that. And my mind operated in a very pragmatic way. And then alcoholism really took me down some very dark paths, as we talked about last time. And when I finally reached my nadir with all of that and realized that I couldn't continue to live that way, I had to let go of all of the ideas I had about how to solve this problem, because that wasn't working, allow other people to help me. And when I entered this 12-step community, it was impressed upon me that I needed to surrender and let go, which to me felt like giving up. That's not in my DNA. I don't give up. I can use my brain to solve this problem. But all indications were that my brain was actually making it worse. And the real solution required me to let go of those ideas and allow other people to help me, and to surrender to the possibility that this idea that my best thinking had landed me in this desperate place, and that the solution lie in surrendering to a sense of powerlessness, which again was very difficult for me to grok and took me a long time to understand. But ultimately, what it means is that, or what it led me to more fully appreciate, is that there really are so few things that we can control in our lives. And I think as human beings, we want to control our environments out of fear of death or whatever it is. But when you really think about it, all you can control is the thoughts that you entertain and how you respond to the world around you. It's what you put in your mouth, for example. But beyond that, you can't control other human beings, how they react to you, what's happening in the world around you. And I think that causes a lot of pain and suffering and consternation for people. And letting go of all of that and really focusing on the very few things that you can control, you can find a certain level of peace. And I think with that, you create fertile ground to grow a healthy dose of humility. And, you being a guy who's sort of a master of the universe and is trying to solve problems with his mind and has created this incredibly beautiful life of largesse doing that, it's probably a harder pill to swallow. So I'm interested in how that lands for you. The other thing I would point out is the tendency to indulge in a little bit of analysis paralysis. Like you could spend the next year trying to figure out what mountain it is that you want to climb or how you're going to get there. And I have a sense that, maybe this might be a thing for you. And I think there's a lot of value in not overthinking things and just saying, this is something that's interesting to me. I'm just going to decide right now, I'm going to do this thing. And it's like 6 months from now and it's in the calendar and I have no idea how I'm going to get there, but it's there, and I think that compulsion to want to know all the answers and how it's going to play out and all the steps you're going to need to take to get there can prevent us from moving forward in our lives. And I think these situations, in my experience, are rigged such that you're not supposed to know all of those answers because you're rewarded for actually getting into action. Like it's tangential to mood follows action. Like action will lead you, like the bricks get laid, only 2 steps in front of you and you're not allowed to see the whole thing, right? Like use Ironman, for example, or triathlon. Like what bike should I get? Well, you can go around that merry-go-round forever, but ultimately the best bike is the one that's sitting gathering dust in your garage. Just go do a race with that and you'll figure out all that stuff as you go. And, it becomes, the more you do it, the more emotionally engaged you get with it. And then these things tend to, develop a life of their own. For me, there's nothing that isn't spiritual. Like I don't look at life in a binary dualistic way in the sense that there is the non-spiritual life and then my spiritual life. Like
now, when you say non-dualistic though, are you taking a very, like there is the mind. So traditional dualism, for those that haven't heard that phrase, you've got the brain and then you've got the sort of spiritual being and the two are not the same. That would be sort of classical dualism.
Correct.
Is that what you mean?
Correct. So for me, it is non-dualistic. It's all one thing. That's how I think about it. And I don't think about spirituality in any kind of specific dogmatic sense. I suppose I would define it as an awe and wonder that anything is possible and that there is much that we don't understand. I think we're hubristic as human animals to believe that we are capable of understanding everything. And we've come quite far in terms of trying to understand space and the brain and what's at the bottom of the ocean and how our bodies work. But I think we've really only tapped the surface of that. And I like to live in that space of awe and wonder. And my life and many of the big decisions that I've made, I think were predicated on a certain kind of non-definable faith in possibility. And the biggest leaps that I've made in terms of personal growth and in terms of my career, the beautiful things that I've been able to accomplish, I think are part and parcel attributable to having a interior spiritual life. Who are you becoming? And that's a question that I resisted asking myself for too long, and as a result led me down some dark pathways or just distracted me from actualizing in a healthy way. And I think our culture is set up to distract us from that kind of self-inquiry. And the reason that I add the word becoming is I think that it speaks to the fact that none of us are static. Like in every moment, we are shifting and we are changing. And every decision that we make, every interaction that we have, every word that comes out of our mouth is either moving us towards a better, more authentic version of ourselves or away from it, in the same way that that process is, as an alcoholic, either moving me towards a drink or away from a drink. So I think in the context of becoming, it's like we're always becoming, we're always on our way to becoming something. Are you becoming a better version of yourself, or are you becoming somebody who is moving away from, what I would characterize as your true essence? And I think the more that we can inhabit that sensibility, if we're in the habit of like thinking about these things, I think it anchors us more in the present moment and allows for more conscious decisions about how we're investing our energy and how we're conducting ourselves or relating to the world or responding or reacting to the world around us. Achieving a goal is a lot easier when you're in a lot of pain, and the and the pain that you're in exceeds the fear of the unknown. You know what I mean? Like, you're in so much pain that you're willing to almost do anything to get out of it.
And that's where you were at?
That's when, you're in a great place to change. So I always say to people that are going through a hard time, like, try to view it as an opportunity. Like, what is the lesson that you're here to that you're meant to be learning right now, and try to leverage the potential energy that's packed into that pain to, transform yourself.
Yeah.
Ironically, change is always available to all of us in every moment, right? We don't have to be in pain in order to change. It's just that it's difficult. It's a lot harder to do it that way. In terms of people setting goals and being unable to achieve them, I think that's a function of a couple things. I mean, first of all, have you set the right goal for yourself? Like, if that goal isn't getting you excited, then perhaps it's not as aligned with your innate values as you might have suspected that it was. So I think a lot of people set goals without having done enough interior work to really understand themselves, to appreciate what might be the right goal for them to set. So I think that's one thing.
So if it's not the right goal, it's probably going to be impossible to achieve it because your life is not designed to achieve that. That's not what you're meant for.
It's not what you're meant for, and perhaps it's just not, there's something inside of you that maybe you're not even aware of that is misaligned with that. Like, if somebody comes to me and says, I want to do an Ironman, or I want to run a marathon, like we were talking before the podcast, you want to run a marathon. Usually my first question to people like that is why? Like, what is it that you're trying to learn? How is that process going to lead to your growth? Like, if they can answer that question and there's clarity around why this is important and what this will ultimately, do in terms of, moving their life path forward, then that's great. But if they're like, it sounds cool, or like, I just woke up one day and decided, then, is that really a goal that's going to have staying power? Because that morning is going to arrive when it's cold and rainy out.
You're not going to want to go.
And, the calendar says you got to do this today, and you're not going to want to do it. And that's where goals, the rubber meets the road in terms of whether you're actually going to follow through on this commitment that you made to yourself, or you're going to, flake and look for the escape hatch. I think, people can get the wrong impression looking at my show or your show at this point being successful podcasts and just think, well, they're just good at that. And forget the fact that, I've spent thousands of hours behind the microphone, and I've been doing this for literally coming up on a decade at this point. I'm terrified to go back and listen to episode 3. I never go backwards and tap into that. Like, I'm just always moving forward. And the thing about the podcast is it's in the doing. The lesson really is that it's in the doing that the discovery occurs, right? Because you're doing these podcasts. They're not going to be perfect. They're never going to be perfect. And you have to let go of that and just keep moving forward and keep putting episodes out and getting better as you go, and maturing and improving and becoming a better host and everything that gets packed into that. So in podcasting, I think that it is a medium in which people are the audience, I think, is more permissive. Like, they're not expecting it to be this highly crafted thing. In fact, if it is, it kind of loses its magic. And I found that when you misstep or one isn't so great, like, my audience at least is like, they're okay with that. They're like, all right, well, on to the next one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And 8 years later, like, hopefully I'm better at it than I was in the beginning. The stakes are higher because the audience is larger. And now it's like a vocation, and there's sponsors and all this other stuff. It's become a business. And that certainly wasn't how it began and wasn't how I imagined it. But I was able to undergo that growth curve at a time when podcasting wasn't as big or as mainstream as it is now. And I feel grateful to have had that experience when the stakes were much lower, so that when this medium has kind of exploded and become more of a mainstream thing, I feel like I have a grasp on this craft that, I wouldn't have had even a couple of years ago. Anybody who's, done hard things in their life knows this, that you feel most alive when you have the courage to step outside of your comfort zone and test yourself and put yourself in an uncomfortable situation where you're going to have to rise to the occasion. Those heightened moments are when you feel most fulfilled, most purposeful, and most, connected to yourself. And I think Jesse understood that as somebody who had, done ultra marathons before. He knew how he felt when he was, endeavoring to do something that perhaps he thought not possible. And I think, when you live this, our culture is set up with this programming that we're all meant to aspire to that level of ease and comfort and luxury. But what's missing is the fact that what actually provides the sense of satisfaction and fulfillment is getting outside of that and testing yourself. And I think for a lot of people, they don't understand that until they, get a taste of what, Jesse experienced, which is, look, I got all this stuff, but I'm not content or as fulfilled as I would like to be. And I need to step outside of that in order to reconnect with that thing that fundamentally, is part of being a human.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from David Goggins, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
She doesn't know how much she taught me because she wasn't much in the teaching mode. My dad took her soul. But what I did as a young kid is I observed everybody. I wasn't really smart in the books, but I was real smart when it came to life.